The AAC Report is brought to you by Blahut of Realty One Group. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, call Blahut anytime at 407-748-0484. Welcome to the AAC Report only on the Knightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Happy New Year to you. You may hear fireworks in the background as I record this podcast on Tuesday night, New Year's Eve, as we get started early out here in Apopka. And it's free sound effects I don't have to pay for. There is that. Coming up, we will continue our in-depth team-by-team focus in men's basketball. Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World will be here to talk about the Golden Hurricanes, and Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant is standing by to discuss the UConn Huskies for their last campaign in the American. But before we hit the hardwood, let's talk bowl games on the gridiron. And since we were with you last before Christmas, we dial back to December 21st. SMU was handed a 52-28 defeat at the Cherubundi Bowl in Boca Raton. Shane Bichelle completed 27 of 47 for 303 yards for SMU. In the defeat, they were seeking their first bowl win since 2012, a day after they gave Coach Sonny Dykes a contract extension. Xavier Jones had a pair of rushing touchdowns for the Mustangs, and James Prochet, who entered as the NCAA's active leader in receptions and receiving yards, had 9 catches, giving him 301 for his career for 86 yards and a score. The Mustangs finish out the year at 10-3. UCF beat Marshall 48-25 in the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl on December 23rd to move to 10-3 on the year. And that brings us to my final nickel's worth on the season, because 2 cents is not enough. Love the defensive scoring from the Knights. Richie Grant getting it started off with a pick 6 on the beginning of the game. Got another defensive touchdown as well. Gabe Davis, Adrian Killis did not play. Yeah, no problem. We saw a glimpse of next year. Otis Anderson and Marlon Williams had excellent ball games, scoring touchdowns with some nifty moves. And a fine culmination to a great freshman season for Dylan Gabriel, as he had a tremendous first season at the helm as the Knights quarterback. And the Knights take over Tampa once again. What else is new? They win more games in that stadium than South Florida. Elsewhere in bowl action, Temple was blown out in the Military Bowl by North Carolina last Friday, 55-13. The Owls finished the year at 8-5 in Rod Carey's first campaign. In the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, number 17 Memphis, as the Group of 5 rep in the New Year's Six, was outraced by number 10 Penn State 53-39. The Tigers gave a great effort for new coach Ryan Silverfield, who was promoted after Mike Norvell took the FSU job. The Nittany Lions had only allowed 14.1 points per game in the regular season, so the fact the Tigers put up 39 was pretty impressive. Now Memphis will await a final decision from quarterback Brady White, a former grad transfer, whether he will return for his final season of eligibility next year. The Tigers played the Cotton Bowl without 2 of their seniors, tight end Joey Magnifico and left tackle Scott Dill. By the way, Kenneth Gainwell, he finished his redshirt season with a very impressive campaign. He had a total of 1,459 yards and 13 touchdowns rushing. And just concluded before I started recording this podcast, number 23 Navy defeating Kansas State in the Liberty Bowl 20-17. Bijan Nichols booted a 23-yard field goal with 2 seconds left. The midshipman got set up for the winning score with a 41-yard halfback pass. Malcolm Perry rushed for 213 yards, the 6th time he has topped 200 yards this season, and is the all-time leading rusher in a season for a quarterback. I have him unofficially at 2,017 yards, as Perry leads Navy to an 11-2 mark on this season. And again, really a shame that he did not get more talk about the Heisman. Not saying that Joe Burrow didn't deserve to win it. He certainly did. But Malcolm Perry should have been one of the guys in New York City. And the fact he did not get enough conversation on that, because he had over 1,800 yards rushing before the bowl game, just really a sad commentary that he did not get the respect most neededly deserved for that. Coming up, there'll be 2 more bowl games featuring AAC teams: Cincinnati versus Boston College Friday in the Birmingham Bowl, and Tulane versus Southern Miss on Saturday in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth. We continue to look team by team at men's basketball in the American, and joining us now is Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World to talk about the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. Kelly, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Well, Kelly, let's kind of start off talking about Coach Frank Haith. He is starting his sixth season at Tulsa after he had runs at Miami and Missouri. When he started at Tulsa, NIT second round, and then an early NCAA appearance in the second season. Been a little up and down since then. How would you assess where the program is under his direction right now?
You know, I think that being competitive in the American is worth a lot. You know, I think most national people would say that's a tough conference, but I think for Tulsa fans, you know, I don't know that they really appreciate some of the games that, you know, Tulsa's won under Frank. I think, you know, it's a challenge for Tulsa to compete in the American in both football and basketball, being the smallest FBS school, and there are a lot of academic restrictions and things like that, financial restrictions. There are just a lot of things that they have to deal with, and I think until they get some of those things figured out, it's going to be tough for them. You know, in a conference like the American, and I think that people's expectations aren't always, you know, fan expectations aren't ever really based in reality, but I think that, you know, there's definitely a need for more postseason appearances, and I think, you know, that's ultimately what you're going to be judged on, but I think that there have been, you know, some good seasons, not great, under Frank, and I think he's still, you know, some signature wins away from winning people over. You know, I think that it just is not to that point yet.
Yeah. So far this season, they are 8-5. They have lost 3 in a row, but they've had some incredible appearances of late. A triple overtime, 111-104 game with Colorado State. Very rarely do you see two teams in college basketball break 100. And then a 2-point loss at Kansas State. So they're definitely they're definitely got the competitive juices going.
Yeah, and they just, you know, they can't get out of their own way sometimes, but then at other times they make these incredible plays. I mean, just that triple overtime game, I mean, they're down 8 in the final minute, sent it to overtime, and just made so many clutch plays, and then they had 3 of their main guys foul out, you know, by the third overtime. Very physical game, and they just kind of ran out of playmakers. And then the game at Kansas State was not the best performance by Tulsa this season. Just a little sloppy, a little just out of sync for a lot of that game. But, you know, they came back again and made things interesting. I think there was a missed call at the end of the game that, you know, would have sent Elijah Joyner to the free throw line with a chance to send that game to overtime. So I don't think that they've been you know, far off in their losses, aside from their game at Arkansas, in which they just got absolutely, like, I mean, that was a beatdown.
Yeah.
But that was a very bad day for Tulsa and a very good day for Arkansas. But most of the time, Tulsa's going to be competitive, and they're going to make things interesting. They're going to be fun to watch, you know, at times. They're just, like a lot of teams, struggling with the consistency factor.
Yeah, so they start conference play at the end of this week, and boy, they get 3 tough ones right out of the chute. Temple, Cincinnati, and Houston.
Yeah, they, I'm really curious to see how those 3 games are going to go, but yeah, they just jump right into it. There's no easing into it, and that's kind of why, you know, it's helped that their schedule has been the way it's been the last few weeks, you know, to play at Arkansas, at Kansas State, you know, they won at Vanderbilt, they played Boise State in Tulsa and Colorado State in Tulsa. So they've kind of been ramping up their schedule, but nothing really prepares you for the American. I mean, it's a tough league. And, you know, I think that they're going to have to figure out some things to, you know, get some wins early on, because if you start, you know, 0-3, that's hard to come back from. You know, I know that Tulsa's picked to finish, you know, in the bottom half of the league, but they're thinking they could be at least middle of the pack. And if you're going to be middle of the pack, you got to make some noise early on. And that's just the schedule is pretty brutal.
Let's talk about this team a little bit. Brandon Rashaw is averaging 14 points, 7 rebounds a game, the one-time LSU Tiger. Talk about his impact on the team.
You know, he's kind of what he brings is different from what everybody else brings. He's that guy. He, the thing that stuck with me about him was, they'd be practicing over the summer, in the preseason, and he is playing like it's an NCAA tournament game. He just plays so hard, and I think that's kind of what this team needed, was someone who's going to go all out all the time. But it's somewhat lessened once you get to this point in the season, and you're known as your team's go-to guy, and teams are really focusing in on you. But he started the season off really well. He brings a lot to the table because he could do just about anything. He's not just an amazing shooter, but he can make plays for himself. He's really good at that. So just kind of a guy that you want on your team, not for one particular reason, but for like all of the reasons. So I think he's been a really good addition because, like I said, he's just different from what everybody else brings.
As far as what the other players bring, talk about some of those players that you think are top of mind.
It's crazy because every game is different. You don't know who's going to have a good day and who's going to have a bad day. But, I think if Martin Zigbanu has a good day, then Tulsa's probably going to win. That's generally how things go because they want to play inside out. It's just Martin has kind of struggled. He gets in his head too much. He's missed a lot of point-blank shots, and that's not what you want to see from your senior forward. He's just kind of up and down. But they have some other options, if things aren't going well for him. Drya Horn sometimes starts, sometimes comes off the bench, and he's a guy who, last season was known for three-point shooting, and he's kind of, he's doing more now, certainly than what he did last season. He's not just a scorer. He's become a lot more versatile. They have some quick guards, Elijah Joyner, and Darian Jackson especially. Those are guys who, when they're attacking the paint, like usually good things are going to happen. They're going to get to the free throw line. They're going to make layups. They're going to, if they, get defenders on them, they're going to pass out. They generally, can get by guys when they're off the dribble. So, they're just, I feel like this team has a lot of good pieces. They're just maybe like one piece away from being like a really good team. And that part of that is the two guys they were hoping to get waivers on, they didn't. So, I feel like if they had one or both of those guys, this team might be more complete.
So what has to happen for Tulsa to get to the middle of the pack? What would be the thing that spurs them there? What do you think that key is?
I really think a lot of it depends on Martin Zigbanu, and I hate to put that on one guy because it's never just one guy, but if he could get going as he's done in the past, it's he hasn't really had that like one dominant season, but he's had some good seasons, and now he's a senior, and it's like this is kind of your time. Like you need to be that guy who other teams are going to struggle with defending you because he's been that way at times, and he needs to get out of his own way and just make the dominant plays that he's really capable of making. He has a lot of talent. It's just if he, if he's going up for a shot under the basket, it's just like he's overthinking, and that's just like the worst thing that he could do. So I think that if he's able to, really get over some mental hurdles, I think that this team, there are enough pieces to win games. I don't think that they can be near the top in the American. I don't think that they have that kind of talent, but they have some competitiveness and different, assets to compete with just about anybody. But I think a lot of that really depends on Martin's and his ability to, just get going in conference play.
Well, you have spoken to how tough the American is, and most everybody had Memphis running away with it, but now James Wiseman's going pro, so that changes the equation a little bit. And there's some talented teams at the top. Who do you like in this conference?
I've seen Houston probably more than anybody except for Memphis. I've seen Memphis play several times. I like Houston a lot. I think that that's a team that. With Kelvin Sampson coaching and the sort of tough players he brings in there, I think it's very difficult to ever count them out. I think that They have that ability to run teams out of the building. I've certainly seen them do that to Tulsa. And like I said, Tulsa usually doesn't get beat like that. But I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, Houston beat Tulsa by like 40 points. I mean, it was so ridiculous. So they just have that kind of talent, and they're extremely well coached. So that's a team that I, certainly am going to keep my eye on. I mean, really, you could just name any team, but that's, with everything that happened with James Wiseman, I immediately thought of Houston. But, Wichita State, I mean, I think that that's a really well-coached team with a lot of talent, too. So I think across the board, this conference is just going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely looks like it could be a potential 4-bid league for the NCAA tournament once again. Kelly, where can folks follow you for coverage of Tulsa men's basketball?
Twitter is a good place. My handle is Kelly Hines TW.
All right, great. Well, Kelly, we thank you so much for taking the time, and we wish you a very happy New Year.
All right, same to you. Thank you so much.
And Kelly and I bonded before we started recording the interview because Kelly is a rescuer of cats, and having a 5-cat household in which all 5 of them we have rescued, I can certainly relate. So good job by her on that. Coming up next, we take a look at the UConn Huskies in their final basketball season in the American with Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant when the AAC Report continues in just a moment. Are you tired of the endless money pit of paying rent? Do you have a home you need to sell for top dollar? Talk to the Hometown Advantage award-winning real estate professional and fellow UCF Knight, Blake Blahut of Realty One Group. Blake has proven to produce results and a smooth process for his clients all across Central Florida. Whether you're looking to buy your very first home or looking to downsize or upgrade, talk to Blake Blahut. Visit him at his website, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com, or contact him anytime at 407-748-0484. Again, Blake'sOrlandoHomes.com and 407-748-0484. Get the hometown advantage by working with Blake.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando for Knightline the morning after. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action. Once again, that's Knightline the morning after, every Sunday morning, 9 to 10 a.m. on ESPN 580 Orlando or TuneIn Radio. Go Knights and charge on.
Let's continue our tour around the American for men's basketball. Let's chat about the UConn Huskies. Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant is here now to do just that. Dom, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me anytime.
So, Dom, I guess the first question is, with it being the last season in the American, does that make for a weird season, or will it be business as usual?
Well, I think it'll be business as usual. I mean, it's a little bit weird, I guess, for the fans and people on the outside, but the kids on the team still have the aspirations to win. The kids who are leaving still have the aspirations to try to become professionals, and the second-year coach, Dan Hurley, still has the task and the expectation of turning the program around. So it's not like you can write this year off or give this year away in any way, shape, or form. So I think everyone in Connecticut's really looking forward to the Big East move next year. It's something that people here wanted for a long time, and but as far as the team itself, I don't think they really want to do anything except win, particularly after having so little success in this conference to maybe go out with a winning note.
And as you mentioned, Dan Hurley is now starting his second season after having some terrific success at Rhode Island. Tough season last year, going 16-17, 6-12, considering what he inherited. But off to a 9-3 start this year. And how would you assess how things are going under Dan Hurley?
Well, I think from UConn's standpoint, it's been an encouraging first 12 games. They have 3 losses. One was a dreadful loss to St. Joseph's that they just weren't ready to play. But they're double overtime loss to Xavier at the Charleston Classic, and a 1-possession loss to Indiana, where they played great defense at the Garden. I mean, those are their other losses. And they have a couple of quality wins. So they beat Florida and they beat Miami at a neutral site. So I'd say it's pretty encouraging. They've taken care of business against the mid-majors that they've played, and we've seen plenty of examples where that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Hartford sprung a big upset yesterday on Northwestern. So, I would say it's been an encouraging first 12 games. They're playing. We're not talking about playing hard anymore. That's become a given. We're not talking about playing good defense, pressure defense anymore. That's a given. Their freshmen have stepped in and made a contribution. So their talent level is a little bit better and deeper. So I would say it's been a fairly good start for the season for UConn. But they've got to start doing what they haven't done in a lot of years, and that's win some games on the road and win some games at some tough arenas in this American Conference, because they've not won at Cincinnati since they've been in the conference. They've never won at SMU, never won at Tulsa. They've won only once in Houston. Right there, that's like one win out of about 22 games. So they really have to start winning some tough road games in this conference to really drive home the narrative that they're much improved.
Well, when Dan Hurley was hired, my first impression was, okay, they're going to be better sooner than later, and he certainly has the pedigree. What are some of the other intangibles that make him such a great hire?
Well, I think one thing is that he's kind of a long-term, program builder as opposed to a quick fix guy. He's not going to sacrifice the things that he believes in and stands for and wants the program to represent for a short-term fix. And I think we saw that. He didn't run anybody out. A lot of schools, especially with a coaching change and some losing seasons, have a wave of transfers leaving the program. UConn hasn't had a player transfer in more than 30 months. So they've had some stability, and that's on his part has built some trust with the guys he inherited and some trust with the guys who come in. But I think there's a good relationship there. And then, we've seen him, he's not afraid to suspend players, even his best players and guys, and if it means losing a game or two, in order to make sure that the kind of discipline that he wants and the kind of demeanor that he wants is in place. So he's a guy that stands very firm for the things that he stands for, doesn't cave in on those things. And I think you kind of saw with Kevin Ollie that the first time he backed off or backed away from some of those from some of the discipline things because maybe he was afraid of losing kids, then he eventually lost everybody. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest difference in Dan Hurley's early years or whatever success he may have.
Talking about some of the players in the roster, Christian Vital leading the way in both scoring and rebounding. Can you talk about what he is doing as far as helping to lead the team?
Well, he's the only senior. Alderrick Gilbert is basically a senior, but he's a redshirt junior. But, Vital's played 4 years. He's played a lot of games. He's been in a lot of situations. So he's a guy that I think most of the players look to and listen to. And although he can occasionally make Dan Hurley pull out what's left of his hair on offense by taking a crazy shot or maybe just trying to do something that he can't do, he's also plays the kind of defense that Dan Hurley loves, and he's among the leaders in the country in steals. He's a real ball hawk. He could really change the game by making a steal in midcourt and taking it in. So he's just a guy that he plays with the intensity and with the speed that Dan Hurley wants, not always as smart as Dan Hurley wants. And I think Dan has basically accepted that as, hey, you need to be smarter than this guys, but this is an example of the intensity that I'm looking for.
And tell me a little bit about some of the other players on the team and who those key contributors are and what will make them successful through the season.
Well, Alderrick Gilbert, after 3 years of misery with the shoulder and other injuries, appears to be healthy finally and playing full time. He hasn't missed any time yet, and that's a big. He obviously is a really solid floor general. The one thing with all the shoulder surgeries that he's had, he's not really shooting the ball or playing offensively the way I think UConn had hoped he would. But he's playing great defense, terrific defense. Again, really hawking the ball, shutting down the other team's high-scoring guard, if that's what he needs to do. And he's doing a good job of running the floor. He has a great assist-to-turnover ratio. Herb Dan has got him to play a little bit more under control in recent games, pick his spots a little bit better and pass the ball. And I think that's his strength is as a leader, and particularly as a floor general and a distributor of the ball. So he's a big key for them. Tyler Polley's the most efficient scorer. He's a great catch-and-shoot three-point scorer. They'd like to get him to do some other things as well. But, he's very efficient with the shots he takes. Josh Carlton's been a little bit disappointing thus far. He's not really asserting himself at center the way he did at times last year. I think that'll improve. He's gotten bigger and stronger, and he's kind of still trying to play the finesse game that he played at 230 when he doesn't have to do that now that he's 265. And then you have the freshmen who've come in and really made a difference. A Cook, 6'9", really very versatile, does a lot of things. One of the top shot blockers already in the country. James Bouknight, a big-time playmaker. Suspended the first 3 games for an off-the-field legal thing, but he's shown a lot of promise. And Jalen Gaffney, who's eventually going to be taking over at point guard, 7 assists, no turnovers yesterday against New Jersey Tech. So they've got a little bit of depth. They've got an infusion of young players that's pushing some of the older players to play better and maybe stop making the same mistakes over and over again that we've seen the last couple of years. So it's an interesting, deep team. It's split right down the middle, 6 early recruits and 6 guys he inherited, and it's meshed. It's working. It's meshed pretty well.
And you mentioned, they need to start winning games on the road, and one of the teams you mentioned right out of the chute, starting out conference play, is at Cincinnati. What are, besides road games, what else will be key to them being successful in this last season in the American?
Well, I know it sounds kind of simplistic, but they just need to make more shots. They just need to shoot the ball better. They've in the games that they've lost, they've missed a lot of opportunities around the basket. Some of them games against big majors, they've missed a lot of opportunities too, but they were just on sheer talent they were able to win. But they've particularly Carlton and the other big men, they've left a lot of points out there, not finishing around the rim, and that's something that they've got to do better. If they can do that better, that'll open up the floor for some of the other things that they'd like to do and do well. But I think that generally speaking, on offense, they get a little stagnant and they don't make enough shots. If they can play the kind of defense that they've played, keep games in the low 60s or the high 50s, they can play that kind of defense, play a little better on offense. And I think that's going to make the difference in some of these road games that they've been losing the last few years. Maybe they can turn that around and win them this year.
Well, we obviously know that UConn, had big desires to get back into the Big East, and but they have one more final season in the American. Who do you like in the conference this year?
Well, I still like Memphis. I know they got a big blow when they lost, Wiseman for the year. I know that, but they have such a great recruiting class, and they seem to be able to continue to win. So to me, I think they're still a team to beat. Houston, I think, is a team that can beat them. I mean, they lost a lot of what they had last year, but it seems like Kelvin Sampson had players to plug in, and I know they came up with a big win over the holidays in Washington. So they've got some nice wins already, Houston does. So I think those two stand out. I know Cincinnati's struggled a little bit, and SMU has struggled a little bit. Tulane is quite a bit improved, but probably not quite there yet. But the teams that I really see here are Memphis, and Houston and Wichita State, of course, the way they finished last year, and they've cracked the rankings today. So I just look at Houston and Wichita State as being the teams that can challenge Memphis, and I think from UConn's standpoint, they need to be the best of the rest.
All right, well, Dom, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk about the UConn Huskies for their final season in the American, and we wish you a very happy New Year.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. See you soon.
Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant, and you can follow him on Twitter at Amore Current. Conference schedule opened up Monday night with Memphis holding off a pesky Tulane squad 84-73. In the last AAC game of the decade on Tuesday, Temple topped UCF 62-58. 3 games slated for New Year's Day: ECU at Wichita State, SMU at South Florida, and UConn visiting Cincinnati. And obviously, since we're recording on New Year's Eve, those scores not available for this edition of the AAC Report. Players of the Week honors Fabian White, the junior forward from Houston. He was the most outstanding player of the Diamond Head Classic, leading Houston to wins over Georgia Tech and number 21 Washington with a 17-point-per-game average and 7 rebounds per game. The freshman of the week, Grant Sherfield of Wichita State. The guard recorded his first double-double with 15 points and 11 rebounds in an 84-66 win over Abilene Christian. And since we were off for Christmas last week, want to acknowledge the players of the week from the week prior. Jaden Gardner of East Carolina was the player of the week, and Precious Achua as the freshman of the week. He, of course, from Memphis. In women's hoops, the players of the week are Marissa Mackins, the sophomore guard at Temple, had a career-high 28 points to lead all scorers in their Big 5 win over LaSalle on Monday, and connected on a career-high 7 3-pointers as a part of a 10-for-22 performance from the field. The freshman of the week, Madison Griggs, freshman guard from Memphis. She paced the Tigers with 21 points, including 5 trays, and the Tigers 79-70 win over Alabama A&M. And just like we did on the men's side, we want to acknowledge the players of the week from the previous week. 2 players of the week, KK Wright, senior guard from UCF, and Olivia Nelson Adoba, the sophomore forward from UConn. And the freshman of the week was Reagan Bradley, freshman guard from SMU. ECU has been touted as the favorite in the 2020 American Athletic Conference Baseball preseason poll as selected by the league's head coaches. Junior Jake Kutchmaner was picked as the preseason pitcher of the year, while his Pirate teammate junior Alec Burleson selected as a preseason player of the year. He was also selected as a first-team All-American by 5 publications, while Kutchmaner was named to last year's AAC All-Conference First Team. Burleson, by the way, was a finalist for the 2019 John Olerud National Player of the Year, hitting .370 with 91 hits, 61 RBIs, while also going 6-2 on the mound with 5 saves and a 3.28 ERA. And in the preseason poll, as we mentioned, ECU out on top. Houston was ranked 2nd, UConn 3rd, and Tulane 4th. Rounded out in order by UCF, Cincinnati, South Florida, Memphis, and Wichita State. The preseason all-conference team, Kutchmaner and Burleson from ECU, 2 of the 4 pitchers. The others are Clay Aguiar of Houston and Leo Lockhart of Houston. Relief pitcher Caleb Worcester from UConn. The catcher, Hunter Goodman, sophomore from Memphis. First baseman, Grant Matthews from Tulane. And his teammate, Jonathan Artiguez at second. Paxton Wallace from Wichita State at short. Alec Trela of Memphis at third. Outfield of Dalton Wingo of UCF. Alec Burleson of ECU. Hudson Haskin of Tulane. And the DH, Wyatt Stapp from Cincinnati. Before we close things off, a reminder, you can always catch me on Twitter. Please give me a follow at JeffAllen_88, and I will follow you back. And also a special invitation to join me throughout the new year on my personal podcast, Jeff Allen Sports Talk. You can find that at JeffAllenSportsTalk.com. And, of course, we will shift the focus to basketball quite a bit on the Knightline Sports Network. You'll hear plenty from Ben Stout, our basketball analyst, as he joins Andrew Fagley on Knightline the morning after on ESPN 580 in Orlando on Sunday mornings at 9, and also with Andrew and Trace on Knightline Sunday nights. And, of course, the Sons of UCF with my buddies Adam and Mike. They will have a basketball focus as well, but we keep you informed on all sports, UCF, and, of course, in the American. And that will conclude this edition of the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network. Pop in the champagne. I'm Jeff Allen. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening.